Hi everybody, welcome back, and welcome back to myself. I'll be honest, for a few days I felt strange, not sick, but not well. Very tired, very moody, and totally overwhelmed, which is something I do not often experience. I have largely aged out of major depression, although when it raised its ugly head towards the end of last year, I went back on my medication and stayed on it all year. So what this is, I do not know. I got home at 2 in the afternoon yesterday after helping my daughter pack up. I went straight to bed and slept until 6 p.m. And if Yellow Dog did not wake me up to let her out and feed her, I would likely have slept straight through until this morning. Strangely, I've heard of a number of people who feel the same, and not only in my area. My sister said her tired is tired, and people in general seem to be a little moody. So yesterday I was again looking into 3i Atlas and R1 Swan and the hordes of asteroids and comets entering our solar system or appearing from somewhere. The activity in our solar system is almost unprecedented. So I know very little about astronomy and am really teaching myself at the moment, but I do know a bit about primary and high school level science. So I know that in science, nothing ever disappears. Now, what I've been teaching the kids for 7 years is that even if we can't see something with the naked eye, it does not mean that it's not there, or it does not exist, or that something is not happening. So when an object moves through the sky or the atmosphere, it continuously collides and pushes aside air molecules, and it creates an aerodynamic force, or then this drag or lift force. But that is not important now, except that the air in front of the object compresses and creates a high pressure area. Now, as all these objects are moving through the sky, or then our solar system, there is also a thrust coming from them, whether caused by their speed or God alone knows what else. So the point is that although we cannot see or necessarily always feel it, I'm wondering whether these big objects are not causing vibrations. Well, I mean, they are causing vibrations, but I'm talking about in Earth's atmosphere, which is in turn causing us to feel so odd. If it was just me, I would have ignored it, but it is not just me. So I'm wondering, there are also these solar flares, which surely must affect us. Anyway, although it's not my usual MO, I did feel a little less moody after my 4 hours sleep yesterday afternoon. A bit of hibernating in summer. I mean, who says I can't do that? Anyway, I watched the arrival of William, Catherine, and the children at the Together at Christmas service. They all looked so scrubbed and polished, and little Louis in his suit is just way too adorable. I absolutely, however, despised Charlotte's dress. Geez, talk about old-fashioned and fugly. She is such a beautiful child with gorgeous hair, just like her mama. But just wait, guys. She is still young, only 10. The day will come where she will tell Catherine, I won't go if I have to wear that. So, I mean, I may not have liked the dress, but yeah, I don't think Charlotte's going to like it either 2 years from now. I mean, all teenage girls go through that phase at some point. Anyway, 1,600 people attended the service this year, regardless of the fact that there weren't many royals in attendance. Kate Winslet and Eugene Levy were two of the celebrities attending the service. The York sisters, although they were 100% invited, did not attend. But Eugenie did make a post wishing everyone well, including Catherine, for the service and saying that both sisters would have loved to attend. I personally cannot blame them or will not blame them for not attending. Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, arrived alone. Zara and Mike Tyndall attended. I also loved the Duchess of Gloucester arriving with her children and grandchildren. I mean, they were a whole bunch of them. It was so cute. The Middletons, without Pippa and her family this year, also supported Catherine as always. I was a bit shocked, though, to see Prince Michael of Kent so frail. It wasn't too long ago that there were still photographs of him partying. I think it was on some boat or something. But anyway, he has certainly gone downhill very, very quickly. Anyway, friends and frenemies, I really want to talk to you about Harry and Meghan today. I watched Harry on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. I am almost very nearly speechless. I know, talking about appearing in Hallmark movies was a joke, but I sincerely would not be surprised if Harry would accept an offer to appear in a Hallmark movie if he was asked to. Look, Meghan did 2 Hallmark movies, and Harry is a far better actor than she is an actress. So why not? Lower than doing a paid speaking engagement to a load of real estate agents, he cannot go. So I think him doing or starring in a low-budget movie would be just perfect. Anyway, the joke was obviously scripted so he could make the final remark. But you elected a king, he said. Now again, had it come from someone else, a conservative American for instance, it would have been funny, because Trump did say, as a joke or as a bit of sarcasm during an interview, that he was the king. It could also refer to the No Kings protest and or the memes of Trump as a king. But coming from Harry, we know it is political and nasty. It is no secret that both Colbert and Harry are anti-Trump. In a way, I'm glad that although a liberal audience, half of the audience audibly booed Harry. Harry does not get that he is a guest in America, and if Trump wasn't such a fan of William and Catherine, Harry would have been deported ages ago. Harry also thought it was a brilliant idea to mock British television personality Alison Hammond. Alison, who is obviously a black female. So then you stop yourself and you ask, but wasn't it the same Harry who, along with his wife, accused the royal family of racial bias and clearly but indirectly called them racist? When we all know it was Harry who attended a party in Nazi uniform and called a fellow soldier a few racial slurs. Emphasizing the accent also shows Harry's classist attitude and superiority complex. Really a disgusting display. Never mind from someone of royal descent and currently titled and in the line of succession. The thing is that it was also fairly obvious that Harry was either drunk or high. Something was not completely 100% functioning, and that something was likely his brain. So by now, we are not the only ones asking for Harry's titles to be stripped. After the Late Show, royal experts and diplomats alike are calling on the king to remove Harry's titles and position in the line of succession. Harry has now become a loose cannon, or at least he's not just a loose cannon, he is a heat-seeking missile. He is volatile, filled with anger and hate. And as far as his current wife's mental health goes, well, we'll discuss that in a while. A while ago I heard about this couple in Washington who actually, as impossible as it sounds, killed each other. Yes, they fatally wounded each other. The female stabbed the male, the husband or the boyfriend, a few times, and then he shot her, and then they both died. When I read that, I immediately thought of Harry and Meghan. I would not be surprised if they explode one day. I heard a long time ago that Meghan has a habit of becoming violent during arguments, and apparently, allegedly, Harry used to remove himself from the situation. He would, for instance, leave and lock himself in a bedroom, or go to the cellar, or go to the guest cottage, or go outside, or whatever. But apparently this is no longer the case. Apparently he has now lashed out at her, or lashed back at her a few times. Allegedly, Meghan does not have breaks. She yells, she screams, throws glassware, scratches, kicks and slaps. Harry apparently by now has slapped back and even broken a few stuff. So it is pretty toxic in that household when there's a fight. So I would rather not imagine it escalating from where it already is. Now, on the Colbert Show, Harry said he'll be in Manhattan for Christmas. Well, again, I cannot verify this, but Harry allegedly, and I've heard this for a fairly long time, spends more time in New York than he does in Montecito. I'm also told that he does not stay in Victoria Jackson's brownstone when he is in New York. He has some other bolt hole. Harry was not lying when he said he will be in Manhattan. Look, the Upper East Side, which they are referring to as to where Victoria Jackson's brownstone is indeed part of Manhattan, but not the part where Harry stays when he is in New York. More than that, I do not know, but I do suspect that family, maybe Pa himself, has a property in Manhattan where Harry unloads from time to time. The King's Trust and Foundation did move office from Washington to New York City a couple of years ago. I can't remember exactly when. It's 1, 2, 3 years ago, but not 5 or 10, okay? Now, I can't really... So, I would not be surprised if the king has a property, say, associated with the foundation or with his trust. Okay, Meghan. Well, of course, Meghan had turned things so that it is all about her, using her old tactic of did she, didn't she, will she, won't she. It's an old game of hers, we know it well. Um, and well, this time it is all about did she reach out to her father or didn't she? She said yes. Her staff said yes, she did. But her father and half-brother said no, she didn't. Well, it appears that she sent an email to an email address that Thomas Markle had not used in 5 years. I mean, how ridiculous. And you can be sure she did this on purpose. Of course, she could phone the hospital or hop on a plane and go see her father. But I guess that would be too obvious, and we won't have this will she, won't we, and we won't have this will she, won't she game. So she can't get optimum headlines out of it. She will probably play this game now for a week or two, and then we'll see what she does from there. Now, I watched clips from her so-called holiday special, and yes, it was definitely filmed last year, likely as part of and likely as the last episode of Love, Meghan. And personally, I think it was rather clever of Netflix to break it up the way they did. But that is not what I want to talk about. I'm not a psychiatrist at all. But I've seen things in my life, and not too long ago, a friend of my daughter's who has obvious, serious mental health issues came to visit, and he was off his medicine at the time. And while we were still living in our previous town, an old school friend of my daughter's came to visit, and he was supposedly just released from a drug rehab. And sadly, in both cases, I had to ask the young men to leave and never to come back. And then I myself had lived quite a life and had seen and been through far too much. So in a sense, I think I'm almost qualified to see madness or then recognize an escalating situation when I see one. Meghan, in my opinion, is quite insane, to the point where I think she can be dangerous. And her narcissism aside, I think in her desperation to be liked, to be famous, and to be rich, she drove herself to insanity. And then the use of coke, not the cola kind, and alcohol had further deteriorated those already fragile brain cells. People who has used this particular baby powder for a long period of time, which we believe Meghan already did way back when she was married to Trevor, may eventually suffer from SUD, which just stands for substance use disorder, which in turn can cause mental health disorders such as bipolar disorder, depression, schizophrenia, anxiety, ADHD, and a slew of personality disorders. Also, other symptoms like hyperactivity, restlessness, confusion, paranoia, aggression, and the list goes on and on and on. We've also started to notice that Meghan is hardly ever without a glass in her hand. Now, I do not doubt for a minute that she's drinking more and more, and I'm almost sure that at least half of us have or had a family member who is or was an alcoholic. So I think most of us are quite familiar with the long-term effects of alcohol. Excessive alcohol causes brain atrophy, which is shrinking of the brain, which affects the frontal lobe more than any other. And that is where our judgment and problem-solving skills actually come from. It damages nerve endings and on it goes. And yes, finally you are a wreck. Problems with attention, concentration, reasoning, decision-making, problem-solving, confusion, memory loss, irritability, and aggression. A whole mouthful. Now, the problem with Meghan is that she has mental health issues regardless of substances. So, to cut a long story short, I believe that Harry and Meghan are like fuel and fire. And I personally am just waiting for the explosion. I have a feeling that at least one of them is not going to walk away from this marriage in one piece. I also do not know how those children can thrive in that environment. With that last outing of theirs, supposedly packing food and having the children there, it is difficult, well, no, impossible, to say whether the one child was Archie. That oversized cap obscured the child completely. It could very well have been a girl and not a boy at all, for all we know. So we cannot really argue with those who say that Archie goes to school in England, because we do not have proof otherwise, do we? I don't really know what to suggest anyone could or should do to prevent some tragedy. And I have a feeling it's not far off. The royal family itself is not in a great state. So I feel that although it may hasten the inevitable, it will be better to remove all official links like titles from Harry as soon as possible. I'm not talking about familial links, okay? Daddy can still love on him. But all official links to the monarchy. Yes, I do believe it will give the fire some oxygen, but I think what will happen anyway. So why put it off? Harry and Meghan are adding further disgrace and scandal to an old institution. Why would anyone in their right mind allow this to happen? I do not think you or I know the full Andrew's story, but it is my opinion that Harry and Meghan and the king and his stubbornness are doing far more harm to the monarchy than Andrew. Okay, guys, now that was a mouthful, but I will be back tomorrow. So until then, please take good care of yourselves and stay safe. Bye.